Well, dry conditions for race 3 at Oulton Park. Let's guide you through the grid. Bradley Smith lines up on pole position number 4, and alongside him, weaving from side to side, the orange car, number 7, Jack Lang. Row 2 of the grid is Steve Burgess. He's got an extra 15 seconds in the pits, and alongside him is number 95, which is Joe Stables, who has an extra 5. The third row of the grid, number 66, Brian Caldwell, who's got 20 seconds come the pit stop, and then Tony Wells, number 3, who's got an additional 10 seconds in the pits, based on where they got in race 3 at Rockingham last time out. That's what gives them the extra time in the pit lane. We're about to get this 40-minute race underway. Bradley Smith accelerates the field up towards Old Hall Corner for the first time. We ride briefly on board with Steve Burgess, the red number 2 car that sits there in third position. The front of the pack head round through Old Hall Corner. Damp conditions still, which catch out by the look of things number 23. That is Jason Rishover, and well, yeah, then there's a raft of others that all get caught out as well. Paul Allen is in there, Mark Hignett is in there, number 72 is in there, which is Cliff Butler. We've also got Konstantin Gukiev has also had a spin as well, so several cars all getting caught out on what are damp but drying conditions here at Oulton Park, as our race leader Bradley Smith presses on. We ride on board with Steve Burgess, who's there in third position. The orange car of Jack Lang lies directly ahead as he accelerates coming out of the Shell Oils hairpin. Joe Stables rather is in fourth position. Tony Wells there in fifth place as the rest of the field stream their way through, including of course some of those cars that were caught up in the first corner incident that are trying to work their way through. So here comes Bradley Smith in the lead. The orange car of Jack Lang looking very menacing there in second position. And further down through the order we can see there goes number 14 John McLeod. He's got the number 52 car not that far away. That's Mark Richards, who's had a solid weekend here, Mark. He's been a busy chap in each one of the races that we've had so far. I suspect race 3 is going to be very similar for him. So up through Clay Hill, through the right-hander at Druids, and then in towards the braking area. Here comes number 91, David Franklin. He started from the pit lane and is now amongst the traffic that had the spins right at Old Hall Corner. He's had a spin himself by the look of things coming out of Hislop chicane. No harm done, so he will spin the car in the right direction and press on. Race leaders over the start-finish line. Top 4 still as they were. Bradley Smith and Jack Lang. Then Steve Burgess there in third position. Joe Stables in fourth place. This is John McLeod fighting away with Mark Richards still. Not a great deal to choose between either of those two as they press on down through the order. Here comes number 13, Simon Garmston, looking up the inside of Peter Tyler. Has the inside as he gets to lodge, but then spins, puts Peter Tyler into the gravel. No harm done for Simon Garmston. Should be able to, once the traffic has gone, get the car in the right direction, so he will recover. What happened to Peter Tyler? Let's have a look. Yeah, there he goes as well, recovering as well. So both of them having avoided tripping over each other, but it was Simon Garmston really that on the damp track just lost the tail end of the car. There in the distance is another car that's gone off. That looks like Jack Manchester that's had an off. That being the number 15 car. So tricky conditions. You can see the dry line, but you can see the wet parts of the circuit as well. And if you want to overtake the car ahead, you have little choice, but you put your Dunlop tyres onto those wetter parts of the circuit, and therefore you are very much in the lap of the gods as to how much grip or adhesion there is or isn't. And of course that will change lap after lap after lap as the circuit continually dries. Steve Burgess there in third position, under pressure from Joe Stables, number 95. And as we look towards our race leader, you can see, as he has done in race 1 and race 2, slowly Bradley Smith is just starting to eke out an advantage now between himself and Jack Lang. So the gap is coming out between first and second. Steve Burgess in third. There he goes through shot with Joe Stables not overly far behind. Somewhat distance fifth place for Tony Wells at the wheel of the green car. And as they come over the start-finish line, looks as though the pace is easing up. I fear we've got a safety car here, because all of a sudden the pace has eased, and as they head out of Old Hall Corner, yes, the safety car almost racing to get out ahead of the race leaders to make sure he picks up the race leader. Right, that's the reason. That is number 48, Andy Chittenden, with his Radical SR1 that's had an issue, and someone else as well by the look of things. That's number 99, which is Konstantin Gukiev. Let's have a quick look at what happened to Jason Rishover. Lost the tail end of the car. There we see the spin for Peter Tyler in front of us, and then as Jason Rishover keeps the engine going, Peter Tyler recovers. Jason Rishover recovers. The view from Sean Mellors, you can see it all unfold ahead of him, and he really has to thread a needle, doesn't he, almost to work his way through the cars that had had the spin. This is David Franklin's view. He started from the pit lane, and you can see them all stationary in the process of recovering. So David Franklin, having started from the pit lane, able to gain a few places immediately. So safety car is now coming in because the cars of Andy Chittington and Konstantin Gukiev have been dealt with. So Bradley Smith is going to have to work hard here, weaving from side to side, trying to build the temperatures in the tyres in this ever-drying track. And looks as though it's a good restart. Bradley well versed with restarts. Jack Lang, new to sports car racing this year, is looking to try and go with him. And it's Steve Burgess, Joe Stables, Tony Wells, and then it looked as though it was the car of McLeod that sat there in 6th position. It is indeed, yeah, number 14, John McLeod, that sits there in 6th position. Mark Richards is in 7th. Number 57, Brian Murphy's there in 8th place. Those two working terribly hard. But it's been a good restart by the leading pair, who've already built a little bit of a margin between themselves. Brian Murphy under pressure as the number 66 car of Brian Caldwell looks to try and get through. The battle of the Bryans being headed by Murphy currently, as the race leaders are safely along Lakeside and sprinting their way up towards the braking area for the Shell Oils hairpin. You can see the field of cars streaming through, all got themselves bunched up together. There's number 10, John McLeod, his brother Brian further up the road. He's looking to try and apply the pressure and see whether he might be able to work his way through and past the car of Elliot Goodman that sits directly ahead of him currently, number 28. Onto the brakes, in towards the left and the right flicks at Britain's, whilst the race leaders are going in towards the chicane at Hislops. And, well, Joe Stables is looking pretty racy, isn't he, number 94 there, and number 95 in 4th position. Very much putting the championship leader, Steve Burgess, under pressure. He was in the braking area for Hislops, but the gap opens up between the two of them as they head up Clay Hill this time. As we ride on board with Joe Stables. With a very, very fast double apex right-hander at Druids. You can see the damp parts of the circuit. Here comes number 15, that's Jack Manchester. He's looking to try and work his way up through the order. The next of the cars he's going to want to try and squeeze his way through is going to be that of Cliff Butler, who puts him onto the grass by the look of things. Cliff busy battling away. Jack Manchester very brave to try the move, but the door was always closing and bounced across the grass, recovered the moment. As the leaders go over the start-finish line, order still remains the same. Steve Burgess there, still under pressure from that man. Joe Stables in 4th position as they work their way out of Old Hall. Along the avenue and down in towards a very fast left-hander at Cascades. Important to get a clean exit out of Cascades and build that momentum as you head onto Lakeside, the straight that brings them up towards the top section of the Oulton Park International Circuit. Further down through the order, looks as though Jack Manchester busy squabbling away with Cliff Butler. Cliff Butler has got the Dayglow car of Peter Tyler right behind him. And that's a good little train of cars all fighting away for positions just outside of the top 10 at this stage, including at the tail end of that car number 19, Sean Mellors, who had a retirement earlier on over the course of this weekend. But our race leader is just keeping the car of Jack Lang at bay at this stage. Neither Bradley Smith or Jack Lang have any additional time penalties to worry about in the pit lane. Look at the squabble for 6th place as, by the look of things, the car of Brian Caldwell tries to dive past John McLeod, who goes over the grass at Hislops. There was a mistake ahead also for Mark Richards, so great driving by Brian Caldwell. Picks the pocket of both of them ahead of Mark Richard, ahead of John McLeod, and he can now focus on what lies ahead of him. He'll be watching his mirrors for the moment, though, because having taken 2 places in one corner, he's going to surely come under pressure from those that he's just picked the pocket of. So the leader's already safely through towards the conclusion of one more lap. Here comes Brian Caldwell, Mark Richards, John McLeod, and then the number 57 car in the hands of Brian Murphy, who is down towards the bottom of the top 10 and still going well. The Ginetta racer, who has now been racing radicals for a good period of time as well. Sports car racer through and through, the man from the northeast, looking to try and put John McLeod under pressure. For the moment, though, the white and checkered car of John McLeod still just able to keep himself ahead of number 57, Brian Murphy, who is now going to try and sit in the slipstream, I would imagine, as they head along Lakeside. Is he going to be close enough? No, not as they head up towards Island Bend. Very fast left-hander at Island Bend, so no opportunity as yet for Brian Murphy to squeeze his way through. Yellow flags there also, because off and into the gravel trap, and a spin for Elliot Goodman. Into the gravel trap has gone Jack Manchester. There's a spin at Island Bend for Elliot Goodman. You see Jack Manchester's car in the background. Elliot Goodman, though, should be able to recover from his spin and bring the number 28 car back onto the circuit. As Elliot Goodman is about to rejoin, Jack Manchester already out of the car and into retirement, unfortunately. So there goes Elliot Goodman. He's now fallen behind the number 80 car of Peter Tyler, so he's lost some half a dozen places almost there with that mistake at Island Bend. Thankfully, no damage to the car, and as it's reasonably early on in the race, plenty of time in which to try and make amends. A spin for Barry Liversidge, and that is at the Hislop chicane. Slap bang in the middle of the circuit was he when others arrived. He's now got the car pointing in the right direction. And as we come over the start-finish line, right, more safety cars by the look of things. Yeah, further safety cars coming out. And therefore, the pack all bunches up once more. And we are now at the pit stop window. Now, looks as though the pit window opened just as the race leaders had already gone over the start-finish line. Those at the tail end of the field may well be able to pit on this lap. In fact, yeah, Sean Mellors is doing so. He's not the only one to do so as well, because it looks as though he's being joined in the pit lane by at least one other car. And this could be an advantage for those guys at the tail end of the field, because, of course, the front runners are held up behind the safety car, which is out there because of the position at which Jack Manchester's car has come to rest up at Shell Oil's corner. Waved out to the pit lane goes Barry Liversidge. He was the other car that came into the pit lane. And on this lap, I would imagine, the rest of the field will dive their way into the pits, one would have thought, because the safety car's staying out there. And yeah, the vast majority now all peeling their way into the pit lane by the look of things. So for the likes of Bradley Smith and Jack Lang first and second in the race, it's just the standard procedure for them, the minimum period that they need to remain stationary in the pit lane, whereas for the likes of Steve Burgess, car number 2, who was there in third place, he's got an additional 15 seconds to spend in the pit lane. And there we go, Steve Burgess, I think just being pushed back into the position to ensure that he's released comfortably back out of the pitch. You can see just how very busy it is. The Oulton Park pit lane is reasonably big, but with all of the field all pitting at the same time, it's making it very, very difficult out there with, by the look of things, Bradley Smith back out and into the lead of the race. There goes Steve Burgess. He had the extra 15 success seconds following his performance in race 3 at Rockingham. Jack Manchester's car being removed from the gravel trap as the race leader, Bradley Smith, goes through. So it will be Bradley Smith that will hang on to this lead of the race. It will be Jack Lang that has managed to hang on into second position. We'll have to see what the shuffle of the pack was as they came out in the pits as to who's managed to secure third position, as we are very shortly about to get the race back underway. The two cars that pitted a little bit earlier, Sean Mellors and I think David Franklin, who started from the pit lane, are about to be gobbled up by the quicker cars that are coming in behind. And as they now go over the start-finish line, it is Sean Mellors that is about to be gobbled up by Bradley Smith on the run up towards Old Hall Corner. Bradley Smith leads the race. Jack Lang is there in second place, and as they now work their way along the avenue up towards Denton's and then down through Cascades, it is Joe Stables that's up into third place. It looks as though John McLeod might be up into fourth as well, so there has been the shuffle of the order. That's largely because of the way this championship works, allocating success seconds subject to how drivers got on in the 40-minute race at the previous round. If you win your class, you get 20 seconds. If you're second in your class, you get an extra 15 seconds. If you're third in your class, it's an extra 10 seconds. And if you're fourth and fifth in your class, you hand yourself an extra 5 seconds for the next 40-minute race or so over the course of the championship. And that happens round after round after round, and that's what shuffles the order. We now see Lee Bailey having to stick his elbows out, trying to hang on to the place, but unfortunately number 52 able to squeeze its way through. That's Mark Richards. And you can now see this great battle for fourth that's going on, which is John McLeod under huge, huge pressure from Tony Wells. It is John McLeod that hangs on to the place. Tony Wells behind him currently. And McLeod will be looking for a good result here. He had a poor qualifying in race 1. He started off the back of the grid in race 2, so a good result in race 3 is exactly how we'd like to finish off the season here, or the weekend at Oulton Park. And at the moment, he's coming under pressure, and up the inside goes Tony Wells, gains the place, so through goes number 3. Tony Wells up into 4th place. John McLeod drops down into 5th position. He's got further cars queuing up behind him at the moment, which includes the number 10 car in the hands of John Caldwell. Then Steve Burgess, the championship leader, sits behind because, of course, he was delayed in the pits with that additional 15 seconds. So it looks as though John Caldwell here is going to lose the place. Steve Burgess able to sneak his way through on the run down the avenue and in towards Denton. So another place gained for Steve Burgess. He'll now set his sights about the next of the cars ahead. And is looking to try and make inroads into John McLeod, who has just lost one place to the green car of Tony Wells, and is now in danger of losing another. Elsewhere down through the order, it looks as though Sean Mellors is being picked off by car number 80. That will now have Tom Gladys behind the wheel. So Sean Mellors, or Gary Ramsdale, it will be, won't it? Gary Ramsdale, who's taken over that car now, who's just been picked off by Tom Gladys. And looks as though there might be further places lost here, because Simon Garmston now also sweeps his way through. Yep, so another place lost there. Gary Ramsdale now dropping down a further position as Simon Garmston works his way through. Next of the cars is going to be the recovering car of Elliot Goodman, who was one of a few drivers that has been caught out in some of the tricky conditions here. And you can see now the circuit is largely dry as Elliot Goodman accelerates the car coming out of Hilltop and should gain the place. Problems for number 20, slowing all of a sudden with a very slight mistake there for Mark Crader. Gathers it up, loses maybe 1 or 2 places, but is now having to fight terribly hard to hang on to the position that he's currently in. And for Mark Crader, that's going to be down towards the bottom of the teens, I would have thought, at the moment. As elsewhere down through the order, we also have Tom Gladys now looking to try and dive up the inside of Matt Brooks and gain the place. So yeah, place gain for Tom Gladys. That's up to 12th position now. Matt Brooks drops down into 13th. Well, our race leader is now on his last lap of the race, and for Bradley Smith, it's looking as though it's going to be a clean sweep of victories. Of course, he's not eligible for championship points, so Jack Lang will take maximum points, which is 80 points for a race victory in the slightly longer third race of the weekend. 2 stables there in 3rd place. That's Tony Wells in 4th position, just putting a lap on one of the slower cars. That's Edward Murray that he's just put a lap on. And Edward Murray's about to be gobbled up by the championship leader, Steve Burgess, who dives up the inside, heading in towards the Britain chicane and gains the place. So it looks as though the top 3 are largely settled now, barring any mistakes on this, the final lap of the race. And for Bradley Smith, it is going to be a dominant weekend for him. 3 races, 3 victories. For Jack Lang, it's been an indifferent weekend, really. Went well in one of the races, had a spin at the first corner, not as a result of his own fault. There was a little bit of contact, nothing malicious, that just dropped him down for the order. Good recovery drive, but he'll be very pleased with 2nd place in the 3rd and final race of the weekend, whilst the squabbles further down through the pack still continue. That's Jason Rishover, still hugely keen to gain a place. A spin, that is Lee Bailey that's had an off on the final lap of the race. That is coming out of what is Lodge and up towards Deer Leap. He recovers the car and is able to get going back into the race, just ahead of the race leader, who has safely made his way through Druids for the final time, in towards the braking area for Lodge Corner, and then from there it's hard on the accelerator, up through the gears and through Deer Leap. It's another victory for Bradley Smith here at Oulton Park. He claims a hat-trick in Cheshire in all 3 races of the 2016 Radical Challenge. Jack Lang should come through in 2nd position. Here is still the squabble that is going on. John McLeod in 7th place, being chased all of the way to the start-finish line by Brian Murphy, who is just not giving up, is he, Brian Murphy? But it's all to no avail. It will be John McLeod that finishes in 7th, and Brian Murphy who finishes in 8th.
And that was really, really tricky race. You know, the pit stop race is always hard, let alone without pit stops. You know, but thankfully, you know, we was right at the end of the pit lane. Team done a fantastic job getting the car, you know, straight out as soon as our time was up. So yeah, brilliant weekend overall.
Excellent. The safety car causing the issues there for you a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I had to get really good restarts, but Jack was, you know, he was hot on it. He knew what was going on. So yeah, really tough to sort of break the rhythm and just get going again.
So Steve Burgess has a strong hold on the Radical Challenge Championship. We head to Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit next time out.